You know what it actually is? The webcam is getting hot.
Hmm.
So something must be.
That's not good.
That's not good. If we
On a
start
scale of
smelling
1 to good.
if we start smelling some smoke, then we'll know what it is. All right.
All right, all right, all right.
I guess I'm gonna turn this lamp off my face. Save some light. All right, folks. Coming up on the show tonight, we'll be discussing a very weird cryptocurrency scam surrounding Netflix's Squid Game. If you're trying to play Metal Gear Solid 2 or 3, you might have to wait just a little bit. Just a little bit. And then me and Steve will also give our impressions from the latest release, latest Marvel MCU film, The Eternals. All that coming up on the show starting right now.
Cue intro.
We
should just like straight up plagiarize an intro to a show and just use that. just play the clip from G4's Attack of the Show. And just whenever the phrase "Attack of the Show" comes up, just like it cuts to an audio clip of you just being like, "Nerd Union."
Terrence says, "Cue Jerry's badass bass intro," or we could have a bass off. We could have Steve and Jerry do a bass off,
like in Time Goes to the Mayor. Exactly, just like we were talking about.
Brought it back full circle.
Yep, Kenny and I were talking about Tom Goes to the Mayor, in that like it's a show that we both enjoy, and I only remember one episode, and it's one wherein they want to have a bass fest, but the dam that protects protects the town because they're in a valley, is in dangerous need of repair. And Bass Fest, the vibrations from the basses will destroy the dam and subsequently the entire town / city or whatever. So they decide that if they have Bass Fest, they'll be able to have it if they have two bassists play the same thing back to each other to cancel out the sound waves, and then they'll be able to have Bass Fest. That goes about exactly as well as you would expect.
Oh my gosh.
Oh wow. So, brief aside, this is a great opportunity for me to show off this neat sticker that I have of a photo that I took that an artist who is the #1 rated cartoonist in the nation, as voted by other caricature artists. I should say caricature artists. I misspoke, not cartoonists. But he drew this Johnsky based off a photo that I sent him, and then one of my friends was like, "You should make it into a sticker," and so I did, and it's on this bottle.
Yep, L2Tstore.com.
Yeah, there you go, and you can buy them from our Nord Union store. No, I'm kidding.
Hey, don't put it past us. If people really like it.
Maybe. I'm not sure I'd have the rights to sell that, though.
We'd also go for the right channels. We'd call the guy and be like, hey.
He's like, hey, you drew this. Can I sell this? And, like, give you most of the money, please?
Exactly.
Talk about getting your face out there.
Hey, if that's what it takes, we'll do that for the team. Taryn asks, camera problems again? Yeah, I'm working on it. We'll get it figured out. I promise. I think I know what the issue is. That would require me pulling this PC out and testing my busts, or actually checking the USB ports and seeing which one's giving it the issue. All right. So,
where are my notes?
Where are your notes? While you're grabbing out. Hello, everyone. This is Commandership, and this is State of the Nerd Union on this Monday, November 8th. I am joined by my co-host. I think we settled on Fro Fox. Is that?
Yeah, that's cool. Or I guess Imminent Doom.
Oh yeah, we'll go back. We'll go to Imminent Doom. You said you didn't want to do Grandmaster anymore because you were like, yeah.
I'm like, the temple's been closed for a long time, and next gen not really, but they're still around. But I don't work there anymore.
Imminent Doom. That's what we'll do. All right. How's your day going?
How is my day going? Pretty good. Right? Is that true? It's true enough. Pretty good.
You gotta tell me, because I'm not gonna know. Let's see. But I want to know. But I won't know. But I want to know.
But speaking of people who are having a pretty good day, the Eternals box office hit $38 million through Friday, aiming for an $80 million box office worldwide. Marvel's Eternals, which already had opened as the lowest rated Marvel movie of all time, which is wild to me, faced a number of boycotts from Middle Eastern countries due to the portrayal of a same-sex relationship. Hit 38 million on Friday, but as of this writing, they're still waiting on the final numbers to come in. I feel like, given the boycotts, it's probably more to do with possible review bombing than it is of people who are giving an actual critique of the film. But as Kenny and I were talking about earlier, it's like, Thor: Dark World is right there for the lowest rating Marvel film. Come on. It's like, you expect me to believe that the Eternals is worse than that? Come on now.
I'm definitely gonna. I know we're gonna give our impressions later, and I'll give some scene breakdowns tomorrow on the Commandership show. But none of the issues I have with it would get it in Dark World territory. Like, I think the stakes are clearly defined, and but no, I'll hold that. We'll get to it. But that 38 million so far was just till Friday, so we don't really. They're projecting probably 80 million over the weekend, which would be pretty solid for a worldwide box office. Just got to see what the legs are on this movie, see how well it does continue. But it really doesn't have anything else coming up against it for a bit. It's almost got the month by itself. Like, yes, Ghostbusters is coming out next weekend.
Oh, sweet!
Not that's coming next weekend, but that's just not a movie that's going to like. It might be good. I don't know.
It's not going to compete with a Marvel good.
Right, yeah. It's not going to compete with an MCU movie. So they probably have got the month to themselves and will do probably pretty well. All right. What is next? Oh, so Disney Plus is sort of getting a price drop. If you sign up this month, in the month of November, you can get the service for $1.99. It'll be $6 off. But that's only for 1 month. And then the regular price of $7.99 will kick back in after that month. And I see what you're trying to do here, Disney. I see what you're trying to do. You got all these Disney Plus on Disney Plus Day coming on this Friday. All these things getting ready to drop. Shang-Chi's getting ready to release on Disney Plus, and all these nice. Jungle Cruise and Enchanted and stuff. I see what you're trying to do. I see what you're doing. Sweet Home Alone. The little new Home Alone reboot thing. I see what you're trying to do. You're not clever. I see you. I see you trying to get people hooked. I'm not falling for
it. We've all seen this anime before. We know what's going down.
But yeah, I mean, that's a pretty solid. I mean, if you are going to go do it, that's not a bad way to start off a trial. Additionally, for the Amazon crowd, I thought originally this was for Amazon Prime members, and it still is, but there's a little, let me give a little nuance on it. So Amazon is offering 6 months of Disney Plus free to Amazon Prime subscribers if you subscribe to the Amazon Music Unlimited subscription. And if you already have a subscription, you can get 3 months free if you're a current subscriber of the Amazon Music Unlimited. But the combined price will be $16 together for both services, which actually is not bad if you're more on the Amazon ecosystem and just want to add on Disney Plus. So, not terrible. Dun, dun, dun. All right. And the last Amazon plug, I swear, because be talking about Amazon. Is okay. They're currently offering a buy 2, get 1 or buy 3, get 2 deal on a variety of products that you can see on the Amazon landing page, especially for the gamers and movie lovers, and for our book lovers. You could probably save a lot on brand new items. So there's brand new PS5 and Xbox Series X games that you can roll into that. So if you were already going to buy it and want to get one of those cheaper, probably not a bad idea. Although personally, from experience on how deals work over at like Best Buy on Black Friday, I maybe will at least wait a little bit and just see what the actual Best Buy Black Friday deal will be on their games, because usually they might mark it off $10-$20 on one new game, and that's just If you only wanted one of those games out of the like, that would be better. That you could, that would be a lot better. So, but yeah, just check those out. And as we see some other good ones, we'll definitely pop in and let you know. Cool.
Alrighty. I believe that takes us down into your favorite section, Kenny, for the cinephiles.
Yeah. So, No Time to Die has already been out for a month, and it's getting ready to be on rental, but that's not a surprise. The 30-day window has really become the standard for the end of this year and going into next year. It'll go probably up to about 45. But No Time to Die will be available for rental, though. So this is not streaming anywhere as far as like on like say a Netflix or Amazon Video or anything like that. This will be more of, hey, you could rent it on one of your favorite services for 24 hours, however long that time period is, for $19.99, and get to watch the movie in the comfort of your own home. So, yeah.
As if that's like the ideal movie viewing area.
I mean, it is for some people. You know, I was having a good conversation with a friend about open captions and how much.
True.
You know, so, and I readily admit, like, theaters could do a better job. One, even providing those screenings.
Mm-hmm.
Two, making them more advertised and like getting more of those at the same time. And then second, or I guess added to that, is just, I think it would be okay with captions at some point. I know big cinephiles will be like, why is that text covering the beautiful image? All right, okay, then just project it into the black space. Just project it into the black space there at the bottom of the screen, which everybody has. Put a little platform or something up. I don't think this is that difficult to do, my lord, because you already shoot at different sizes depending on what the actual content of the film is. Like if it's if it's in 4:3, if you get an IMAX film, you know, fills up top bottom. You know, so in that example, yeah, you might have to shoot a little bit into the film space. It will be okay. It will not be the end of the world. You know, accessibility is a good thing.
It's going to be okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this not too, like maybe a couple weeks ago, but a while back, my partner Marjorie and I went to go see Hadestown in DC, and in the theater they had a like a text box off to the side which had subtitles, so you could read it while you were doing stuff, and it was like, it was the kind of thing where you don't really notice that it's there until somebody says a line, you're like, the hell did I say? And you look over and it's like, you know, in a moment it scrolls up like, oh, okay, that makes sense, because that was an important line and I couldn't hear what was said because I was giggling at something else that happened or whatever. And then immediately, I think the following day we saw Dune for the first time. And if all Dune stuff aside, there's a whole bunch of scenes wherein important plot things are happening, and they're like, should we have the protagonist mumble? Let us mumble. And I'm like, you know, this feels like a really important expository thing that the audience should hear at a reasonable volume. And I'm like, after just having seen a play that had subtitles, I was like, this should need some subtitles. This is whack.
Yeah. Especially Dune then decides to like up the soundtrack at the same time too.
Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, now you wanted to turn up the ambiance while he's you know, mumbling, doing his thing. Whatever. I'm like, come on, man. It's like this seems like it's real important. But all that to say, it was immediately demonstrated to me. Like, I was like, I really wish this had subtitles. And also, having watched a whole bunch of films at home, now I'm like, I'm used to seeing subtitles, and I'm like, anytime I mishear something, my eye goes straight to the subtitles. So, you know, accessibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, a nice cup of tea said, subtitles forever? Absolutely, subtitles forever.
They also said, home theater is good for those of us that are this close to murdering the next person talking on their phone during the movie.
Mm-hmm. Or people who pull their phones out at maximum brightness.
I was like, let me check what did they say? Like, God. I will say this though. Having just done the festival 2 weeks ago, or it's been a couple weeks now. Losing track of days. I think that's why. Because for context, this was a conversation that was happening on my social media way back before this ever came out, but more just about subtitles in general at theaters. And part of me was just like, but what are y'all talking about? Why do you mean that it's... And I kept getting these examples of like AMC and Regal, And I'm like, but I hate those places. like, I go to them if I need to, like, if that's just what's in the area. But like, to me, like, I've never had a problem going to get an usher in a smaller theater, and they probably have like smaller theaters, even though they might have to run at a not at reduced cost, but just like on a shoestring budget. They still usually are pretty good about having an usher come through and just check how what's going on in the theater, which Regals and AMC's.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I haven't, like, I remember when I was a kid, like, that used to be a regular thing of you'd have people walk through occasionally and you'd see somebody on the side and like, you'd kind of delete it from your brain. But like nowadays, I haven't seen anybody, like, who works for the theater walk through a movie theater in the middle to, like, do any sort of reconnaissance, like, in at least maybe 10 to 15 years. Like, it's been a while.
Oh, man. Yeah, and I think that's
also, I go to Regal and AMC, so...
I think that's where my experience was, like, I was like, yeah, I know I was like, oh, okay, this is why we're having disconnect in this conversation, because I'm like, and I was thinking about the whole time at the festival, like, that wouldn't have been...
Except...
Yeah, you wouldn't have had to say anything, because the usher would have seen it, or one of the presenters would have seen it, and it would have been like, no, you know. But even case in point, like a friend, one of our mutual friends was talking about Alamo Drafthouse and the one they went to. Even though they are really good about cell phones, they're not really good about open captions. Having that as an option. So that's still a thing that everyone's gonna have to get better about. But if there's anyone I think that could implement it really well, I think the smaller theaters should be able to do it. From a cost perspective, the bigger theaters really shouldn't be that hard to implement, but might be the hardest dinosaurs to help move along. Oh,
yeah.
Let's move to
Stranger Johns.
Stranger Johns. Is that it? Is that what we're doing?
No, Stranger Things. Well, you already mentioned the Disney Plus one in the other one.
Oh yeah, basically. Well, I'll tease this for tomorrow. The one thing I'll say, basically, there's a lot of things they said they're coming out on Disney Plus Day. We're not going for all of them because it was a pretty exhaustive list. We hit some of the bigger titles. There's going to be a Boba Fett doc to come out that same day. A behind the scenes for Shang-Chi, so it's going to be really cool. The one thing that me as a film nerd really likes, and if you have a projector in your house, you're going to know maybe where I'm going with this. They are going to release IMAX versions of a lot of MCU films that were filmed in IMAX. Now, historically, a lot of those films were shown in IMAX. There's a difference in just something being shown in IMAX as opposed to actually being shot in IMAX. If the movie was filmed with parts in IMAX, they're going to put those IMAX enhanced versions on Disney+. So tomorrow on the show for Commander Ship, I'll explain how you could set that up on your respective TVs, or if you have a projector, how that will work. Because if you already have some of these DVDs, sometimes that's been an option. Like if you have some old 4K or some Dark Knight. Dark Knight was one of the most infamous ones of having so much IMAX. It's like if you put it on the right projector, you could get your full IMAX length and like
experience.
Or, height. If you kind of sort of the scale is not gonna be the exact same thing because it's in a house, but
yeah.
So yeah, we'll talk about that more. But I think that's really cool. It's 13 movies that are gonna get the treatment that have either already had that, and a lot of recent MCU films have had that as well. So eventually, that should mean when Eternals hits Disney Plus, you'll get to watch that in all of its IMAX glory as well.
Yay!
All right, Stranger Johns.
Yeah, here we go. So Stranger Things is set to debut in summer of 2022. Feels weird to say that. The show got delayed by the pandemic filming schedule, which pushed it from being completed this year, but now it's confirmed to drop next year in the summer, although we don't have a specific date time yet associated with that, just with a general season.
Yeah. So an actual date would be nice. The newest trailer looks cool, but don't really know what's going on there in old Hawkins. I haven't
watched it because I hate watching trailers because I swear they'll put sometimes they'll make a trailer and they put like the most spoilery thing in the trailer, and I'm just like, nope, I want to be surprised.
I will say for anyone that has not watched Eternals and you have not watched a trailer yet, don't do it.
You mean Stranger Things?
No, I'm actually going to jump back to Eternals real quick. If you have not watched a trailer for Eternals, don't do it. Do not watch the trailer. Because there's a plot point in the trailer that I'm like, man, I really wish I hadn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really wish I hadn't seen that. I was kind of upset when I was in the film, and I was like, "Are you?" So my brain had put together a piece of information, and I'm like, actually would not have known that.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's why I don't like watching trailers for a lot of things, is because the person who makes the trailer isn't always like the head person who understands what like the whole film is about. They're just like, that looks cool, this looks cool, oh that's a cool visual or whatever, and I'm like, that's the twist of the movie. You've just revealed the twist of the movie in the trailer. What are you doing?
How could you? How could you do it?
It's not that bad, and I don't know if what's the case for Stranger Things, and I didn't watch the trailer for Eternal, so I can't say. But like, if it's happened before, where I'm just like, if anybody's paying attention, you just spoiled the twist of the film.
Yeah.
You don't.
I mean, just because of I had a friend that was another reviewer that tried to. He would walk out. He would like try to time getting there as the movie would start. So like we'd be sitting in our seats. He'd be like, "These are our seats?" Like, yeah. All right, I'm gonna leave. He tried to time coming back in once trailers were done, or if he didn't care about some of them. Like there'd be some movies he just didn't care about, so he'd watch those. But then if one came on, like let's say a la a Dark Knight trailer, he'd be earmuffing himself or like walking out. I'm like, Daniel, this seems a little and not ridiculous, but like you do realize you want to review movies, and you're like you're probably just gonna have to give that up. Another person can probably do that. You review too much to avoid trailers. Sorry, that's my personal opinion. But hey, if you want to do it, kudos. Good luck, Daniel, wherever you might be. I mean, I'll give that dude a phone call. But look, just got into real personal stuff there for a moment.
Throwing him under the bus.
Just throwing him under the bus. All right, we talked about this not on the shows last week, but I posted a little release. Daniel Day Kim is going to be playing Fire Lord Ozai in the upcoming Avatar: The Last Airbender live action show on Netflix. Previously on the animated Last Airbender, he played General Fong of the Earth Kingdom, voiced General Fong, and also voiced Hiroshi Sato, the billionaire, like industrialist that helped provide machines and stuff. And was it? I can't remember the name of the city. Dang it! Just blanked on. You know.
It's like some generic name like Republic City or whatever, Unity City or whatever.
Yeah, but
I can't remember.
Yeah. something like that. There's something like that. So Steve, what do you think?
I am purposefully not following the Airbender live action thing. Similarly, I just want to be surprised. I'm like, look, man, I've already seen this anime in both the meme sense of the way I usually use the phrase and the literal sense. Of like, oh man, let's take a beloved series and make a live action adaptation. Like, sometimes it's okay, and sometimes it's grossly horrible. So to avoid any expectations, I'm just like, I'll just wait for it to come out, and then I'll watch it, and I'll see how it is.
But I want to be excited.
Yeah, I don't get excited for stuff. So this actually came up recently where I was saying, if my mom's on, she can attest. When I was a kid, like the first time I went to Disney World, it would be like, a week beforehand, and my mom's like, "Oh, are you excited?" And I'm like, "No, I still got like a test I got to do this week. I got piano I got to pay attention to. Blah blah blah." It's like the night before. It's like, "We go to Disney World tomorrow. Are you excited?" It's like, I mean, we still got to get on the plane. And like you gotta wake up early to go to the airport, and like that ain't fun. And it's like not until I'm in the van after landing on the way to the airport am I actually excited. So to give you an idea, live action Avatar is absolutely not Disney World, and I ain't even get excited to Disney World until I was in the car on the way. So nah.
I'm jealous you've been to Disney World.
It's fun.
Well, now I'm at the age where I don't want to wait in line, so I'll probably never go. And I'm not paying for whatever that fast thing is, what that nonsense is. I will say I do feel similar whenever I plan an event for like dance events and things like that, because all my emotional energy has already been poured into it. So by the time we get to the event, I just don't. everyone's like, "Are you stressed?" I'm like, that already happened. Like,
Yeah.
either the event was going to do what it needed to do as far as like numbers and like people showing up and stuff like that. So that's already done. Now it's
Or it's
just
gonna blow
just
up.
executing the thing. But
Yep.
really a lot of execution was already, yeah. So yeah, I can kind of feel that, but I want to be excited for shows again. I used to be so,
Nope, that part of your character is dead, Kenny. Nothing, no excitement left.
yeah.
And speaking of no excitement, it's game time.
Game time.
But not for people who want to play Metal Gear Solid 2 or 3.
Oh.
Due to a licensing issue in the games that involve the archival footage that they reference or use in the opening sequence or flashbacks, the games had to be pulled until Konami can sort out a new agreement. We usually see this happen with music-based games or anything that uses real-world music that wasn't created for the game specifically, and it can make the later ports fall into limbo. A really popular example of this is Earthbound. There's some artwork
that's really good.
used in Earthbound, which is derivative / base / just digital representations of actual existing artwork that Nintendo never had the license to use. And so it for a really long time, when it comes to, oh man, we should release a port of Earthbound. All right, cool. Like those dudes who keep asking us for money because we printed the game without their consent and used their artwork are still hassling us. How much do they want? $200,000. Per art piece. That's gonna be a nah from me, dog. And so like they just don't release it for a really long time. But this happens in similar ways quite often, where they're licensed to use it for some period of time, which seems reasonable, except when you want to have a digital copy that comes out 10 to 15 years later, and now it's a problem.
Yeah, that hits it on the nail. Yeah, we see this happen all the time in movies. If you wonder why something's not on streaming, it's not always about the studio holding it. Sometimes it's about the whole studio holding it because, just like what Steve outlined, is that they don't have the rights to the soundtrack anymore. That soundtrack might be pivotal to a scene in the movie, and it's like, well, we can't do that. It's like we gotta have it before we, release it or try to cut it out. And then sometimes you'll see some weird hack jobs trying to like, we'll just take this song out. I mean, there's thousands of movies that are hung up in this limbo space that every time we transitioned from VHS to DVD to Blu-ray and now to streaming, there's been losses in these movies. So like there's your top your AAA, your big name games. If it's sold a billion, like there's an MCU movie will never have this problem because they'll never like it's so popular that they'll never Disney would pay to figure out how to get that worked out.
Yeah.
But if it's
but if it's a smaller studio or a smaller company or a smaller producer who doesn't have the donkers money to throw to immediately resolve the problem, then you end up in this position.
Yeah, exactly.
You want to take the next one?
So this one, I thought this was hilarious, and Kotaku. So this was released for N7 Day. Basically, BioWare was giving us some stats on how players play the latest Mass Effect Legendary Edition, which is like the remaster. They put the whole Mass Effect trilogy back out, updated graphics and so on and so forth. So these metrics are coming just from the Legendary Edition. Some of them are pretty cool. Actually, I'll pull some of them up and kind of go through a little bit. So like what people use for Shepard's first name, 23% just kept it Jane and John. Other like 77% would use a unique one. 65% of players imported their Shepard from a previous game. So like you could import Shepard into your subsequent Mass Effect 2 and 3 and so on and so forth. And then it gets to the classic decision at the end of Mass Effect 3, and I won't. If you haven't played it yet, I'll leave that one alone. Yeah, don't hit that graphic. I'm check this thing out. But I have to agree with Kotaku on this one. There's of the players who completed the Mass Effect 1 prologue, how many recruited Garrus? 85% recruited Garrus. So I was like, okay, that's pretty. 15% did not recruit Garrus. And
I was like, what are you doing?
It's like, what
Garrus is the best character. I mean, I understand if you like pass up what's that dude's name? Keegan, Cake, whatever. The is that his name?
No, no.
No, the first dude, the dude who you have the option to. It's like the first character that you have the option to pick over somebody else. If you the right choice is to pick Miranda. If I think that's her character's name, I can't remember. It's been a long time.
I can see Songdi and Sarah Loke like shaking their fists at the screen right now. Like, how do you all not remember? It's like I'm sorry, we're not as big.
It's been like 10 years. I don't remember, man.
Yeah,
I can't remember. I can't remember my least favorite character's name.
Although, funny enough, I have this edition sitting on the shelf, and I have not gotten to start it. So I am
gasp.
We're surprised.
I mean, yeah, I already played Mass Effect, and I got another 100 hours of Deep Rock to play. It's an over-under. You gotta keep going back to the same stuff. But yeah, I feel you there.
But I just want to quote. Make sure I get the writer's name. Wait, Kotaku. Where's the author's name? I want Ethan Gack. All right. I just like what he wrote. Garrus is sexy, smart, has saved my ass countless times. He might be BioWare's best character ever. And apparently thousands of Mass Effect Legendary Edition players skipped him altogether. And I'll drop down to his final paragraph on it. A whopping 50% of players never recruit Garrus, meaning that they saw him being a wise-cracking hard-ass in the Citadel security office in the earliest hours of the game and thought, no thanks, I'd rather go fight space terrorists alone. I'll be honest, I didn't even know that was an option.
Yep.
Pretty good.
Yeah, that also he has a good line of there's no wrong way to play a video game unless you're one of these people.
Now we here are not going to dictate how you should play your video games, but just thought that was an interesting choice by the Mass Effect folks.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Moving on.
What's next? You want to take this one? The joystick one?
Oh no, I didn't get the joystick photo. One moment, folks.
All right. Well, I'll start it off then. A 9-foot tall functioning joystick takes the Guinness World Record for largest joystick ever made. Created by artist Mary Flanagan, who wanted people to play together again, molded the joystick in the style of a classic Atari controller using wood, steel, and rubber. 2 people are required to operate the stick together due to its bulkiness and weight, and players who visit the exhibit located in KZM Center for Art and Media in Karlsruhe, Germany, though it's toured in Spain, the United Kingdom, and the U.S., can be treated to games of Breakout and Centipede, though it could be hooked up to other games if they wanted.
Yeah, so there's a bit of a screenshot there of 2 kids playing on it, though we can send you the article from The Independent, which shows the video in action of them playing it, which is actually, it's heavy. It is a massive joystick at 9 feet tall, so it takes quite a bit to move it. Like, it seemed like one of those, like, yeah, I should be able to move that by myself. It's like, maybe one grown-ass adult that's been eating their Wheaties might be able to do it, but...
Eating their Wheaties.
But... yeah, I'd be really. I didn't know it had toured here in the U.S. So because we just found out about this today, but I'd be really curious to check that out. I think it'd be a really fun exhibit. Yeah,
not too long ago, and when I say not too long ago, I mean somewhere between 2 years ago and 3 years ago. There was like a gaming exhibit over at the Franklin Institute in Philly, and it was like a gaming history one, and it was comical because I went there and I'm like, I already know most of this. I'm like, and they had like a bunch of like setups of like, oh, these are like iconic games that came out or whatever, like Garuru Man and like Parappa the Rapper, and I'm like, I have these. I have these games, and I'm like, they're like, oh yeah, I'm like, yeah, I still play this. I still sing the songs in Parappa the Rapper for fun. But it was really funny because I'm like, oh cool, like this is the thing that was whatever, and it was a really big deal because whatever. And it's like yo, the plaque's right here, my man. I could just read it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, but it was a good time. But now we're moving into Check the Tech.
Yeah. So. This one is a very, very niche issue, but you'll notice it
An
whenever you
issue,
post a
if you
link.
will.
So if you ever notice when you post a link and you don't get a preview, that has a lot to do with a variety. It can be a variety of things, but most likely it's an issue in how that particular site chooses to preview, especially on a social media site, how it chooses to preview that link. And since 2012, Twitter and Instagram have basically decided we don't want to support this integration between each other anymore. Like, we're good. We're done. So if you were to throw an Instagram link into Twitter, which could be a nice way to integrate and link between the two, just showing a photo from your Instagram onto Twitter, you would just be treated to either whatever that short link looked like on your thread. Basically, you'd have to post a photo again and include the link. So that has since been fixed, although what really led to that spat between the two probably is more of a Facebook versus Twitter thing than it really was an Instagram versus Twitter thing. As we know, Instagram started out on its own before being purchased from Facebook, and that's likely what led to that push between the two, whereas Facebook would want Instagram photos to stay on Instagram and support that infrastructure as opposed to being over on Twitter. Yeah. All right.
I don't use Twitter or Instagram, so I have no opinions.
You have no opinions? You don't want to see nice shiny photos on your Twitter feed?
What Twitter feed? All right, cool. Moving in, we got, as we promised at the beginning of the show, we had some news about some Squid Game cryptocurrency. It doesn't sound real, and that's because it's not. Squid Game cryptocurrency falls apart as a $3 million scam emerges. The old crypto rug pull, as it's called colloquially, a cryptocurrency called $Squid, all caps, emerged back in October, touting that it would be used as a form of currency to play a video game based on the popular Netflix series. No, it wasn't. It was a scam, and the creators made off with somewhere in the ballpark of possibly $3.3 million. The signs that it was a scam were pretty much written on the website. It's reported by Engadget that there were tons of spelling errors on the crypto's website, as well as you did not have the ability to sell the cryptocurrency, only to purchase the cryptocurrency.
Suspect.
That's a real Disney dollars situation if I ever heard one.
Can't be spending the Disney dollars.
Yep.
Yeah, I never like having to report on scams because I don't like people getting
fleeced.
Yeah,
scammed.
Yeah. I don't. I mean, I hate to say it twice in the same sentence, but I don't like seeing people get scammed like that. Yeah, it just really sucks that. And people go say like, how could you be so stupid? I'm like, there's always going to be a. Oh, go ahead.
Well, the way that the crypto game works is when a new cryptocurrency comes out. Like we all exist in a world with Bitcoin, and we all, if you're probably somebody who that doesn't work. Whatever, you didn't invest in Bitcoin. I know you didn't. I didn't either. But like everybody's like, oh damn, sure wish I'd invested in that Bitcoin. So when a new cryptocurrency comes out, you're like, let me buy at least like $100 of this, because that could turn in. It could, if it pops off, that was $100. If it doesn't, then it's just $100. But the people who are extra hype about cryptocurrency are like, oh, let me throw in $10,000, so if it pops off, then it'll be really, really good. And it's like, nope. And then that number balloons and balloons and balloons up to $3.3 million, and then bam, the creators are gone, and so is your money, and you're left with worthless cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
That doesn't.
The other thing that upsets me about crypto right now is just the ability to do pump and dumps right now and it not being regulated. Like, while as much as there is some of the deregulated part of crypto that I enjoy, that's the thing that I feel like until that gets fixed, it's going to continue to hurt folks in a lot of ways. And that's not exactly what this was, but effectively, you're not really having to worry about the consequences of it, because who's going to be able to hunt down, track you on what you did. So maybe someone will suss this out eventually, but I don't know. All right. What is
What's the next one?
facial recognition?
Here we go. So this one here is a good pat on the head for the old Facebook. Also a pointed note as a news reporter. So Facebook tried to straight up steal another company's name by naming their company Meta. All the jokes about Meta being a stupid name to name anything aside, not cool, Facebook. So to me, though they have technically rebranded themselves as Meta, I will continue to call them Facebook because they do not have a legal right to that name, as reported by the company that they stole it from. They're just trying to strong arm them and steal it, and straight up just yoink the name from them. So they're calling themselves Meta. They are not Meta. They're Facebook. And that said, amongst the myriad of topics of, hitting Facebook on the nose with the newspaper and telling them that they're bad, this one they do get a pat on the head for, as they're ending their facial recognition program. So they're going to shut it down within the next few weeks. For those who recall, if you posted pictures on Facebook, occasionally you'd be recognized in a photo and be like, yo, is this you? And you could confirm and say like, oh, yo, that is me, tag me in this photo. Or when you're looking through photos, they would be like, yo, is this Kenny? Is this Jerry or whatever? And you could tag your friends in it. They're not doing that anymore. In order to do that, that requires facial recognition software to recognize people in photos rather than take random guesses or whatever, however you might think that kind of stuff works. But it's a very involved technology, which basically a lot of companies have agreed there's no reason to use this in a wide scale. So the Facebook will no longer automatically recognize people in photos, even if you've opted into using the feature, because they changed it from an opt-out process to an opt-in. So you had to have opted in to have the automatic recognition, and now they're just getting rid of it entirely. They're also going to delete over 1 billion facial recognition templates. And a quote from the article coming from Engadget is, there was already significant pressure to shut down the system. Facebook settled a privacy lawsuit over facial recognition for $650 million in 2020, and it likely isn't eager to grapple with similar cases that could come down the pipe. The company said that it's made the decisions following growing concerns about the broader use of facial recognition, including the uncertainty about regulation of the technology. Facebook believed that the facial recognition could be helpful in some situations, like gaining access to a locked account, but overall it felt that a narrower, more privacy-oriented approach was better fit than the broader outgoing strategy of use it everywhere, use it to do everything. On-device recognition wouldn't require sharing data with outside servers, for example. It's also noted that, like other companies, I think it was Google that stated that they will not sell facial recognition tech at all, and they haven't been doing it since 2018. And Amazon also has an indefinite ban on police use of its recognition, which is a weird spelling of the word recognition, but instead of a C, it's a K, platform, which is its facial recognition software. So companies are understanding that, it's a spy technology problem, to use a metaphor that we've talked about before on the show, of there's no ethical use case where the majority of people are going to use, like, Google Glasses, for example, ethically. Similarly, people probably aren't going to use facial recognition software ethically most of the time, so it's best to limit its use and availability.
Yeah. What in the hey? Got things falling on the desk over here.
Nice Cup of Tea commented, do they get a pat on the head if they should have never done it in the first place? I'll say yes, because a lot of people were doing it, and it wasn't just them. And it's one of those things like, technology outpaces the ability to regulate it faster, and companies more oftentimes tend to try to do the thing rather than ask if they should do the thing. Having more ethical programmers, or programmers who approach things with an ethical mindset, is critically important for exactly these kinds of situations. So somebody in the room has to say, hey, maybe we shouldn't do this. But given that, everybody else did it as well, they seem to be the next biggest name at the table to choose to step back from it. So, it's a good thing, ultimately, amidst like the myriad of other garbage behavior that Facebook exhibits. Like, it's probably not coming from a place of like honesty and communication, but like I'm just happy that it's getting done.
Yeah.
Where were we? Bop bop. Oh, okay. One more Facebook one. Facebook is possibly playing with the idea of having physical stores. Sounds like a stupid sentence, but maybe it's not. So Facebook is reportedly in the discussion of having brick and mortar stores to showcase some of its products, which I always forget that they have a hand in these. They would like to use the stores to give buyers the opportunity to play around with and explore the products that they offer, like the Oculus Quest, which is a virtual reality headset. There's Portal gadgets, of which I'm not very familiar, and as well as like AR smart glasses, which is augmented reality glasses, which preferably don't do facial recognition or take pictures of people covertly. But they have, a small host of products, and they're playing with the idea of having a brick and mortar store to have people play around with these things. As with all things, like it's probably if they make a store, it'll be in California first, close by to where they have their office. If it pops off, then there could be more of them. I am willing to guess that probably not, because running a whole store for the limited wave of items that Facebook has doesn't seem cost effective to me. It would probably make more sense for them to like ask to have like a table in a corner of an already existing store for somebody else who's already paying for the space. But if they want to make their own store, I mean, they got the money to. They can take the hit.
So there have been Facebook kiosks before in different like mall areas and things like that to show off the first like Oculus and different things like that. So I guess it'd be sort of similar in that vein, but usually those are kind of like pop-up temporary things, just kind of help the buzz of a new product coming out. Yeah, so a Facebook Apple store basically to just kind of showcase.
Seems like a waste. Like they're most of their big stuff is digital. So like hey, you got an Instagram, and like, unless I'm walking by the store, everybody's going to be like, yeah, I already got an Instagram, got it on my face.
Yeah, but the metaverse. We gotta promote the metaverse.
I just don't see the use. Like it seems like a waste of money, personally, but whatever.
I mean, they got that money to burn, son. All right, coming up next, Netflix is set to make some iOS games available in the Apple App Store. So Apple's policy against all-in-one applications on their store means that Netflix has to go the long way, uploading all their games individually. So you can see this in the light of Apple's approach, but it still indicates that Netflix will have to make some compromises if it's going to bring mobile games to iOS. This also underscores a growing rivalry between Apple and Netflix, as Mark Gurman. Oh, man. Oh, Mark Gurman. He's that dude. Because, again, the two are competing on a number of fronts, ranging from gaming to streaming video services. So, if you're not aware, Netflix adding the gaming division, Apple possibly getting more into gaming. Not saying they aren't gaming, but they're getting more into gaming. And already with Apple TV Plus, and then obviously Netflix as a streamer.
And Apple is actually like, I initially scoffed at the idea of their streaming service, but Ted Lasso is really, really, really good.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's probably been one of my favorite shows on streaming in a long time, and I'm like, dang it,
you got me, Apple. It had to be Apple.
Yeah. And I heard that new Tom Hanks movie is pretty good, Finch.
I have heard nothing about it, but I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, it's pretty solid. Yeah, so this is going to be... So if you're wondering why we're talking about Netflix and iOS games, so as much as we had heard about Netflix potentially bringing gaming to their streaming platform, what they've actually done first is really just buy up a bunch of mobile games, some based off their own properties, and that's been kind of their first toe into the gaming water, which had already been happening overseas in other like European markets and the Southeast Asian markets, and now it's finally coming over here to the stateside. So as much as you've seen Epic have issues with how the App Store is handled, I would not be surprised if we see Netflix also either take advantage of the current ruling or maybe buck that a little bit. We shall see. That's gonna be interesting to see how they handle that.
Indeed.
Yeah, I can take the next one. You had to talk for a bit, so yeah, I can take the next one. All right, so
I see you read my note.
It's like we've gone back full circles. Full circle. What's that again?
Or the snake eating its own tail.
Yeah.
Ouroboros.
Yeah. Uber wants to use yellow taxis. And you thought the rideshare industry would kill taxi cabs. So, if you've ever loaded up the, if you ever loaded the Lyft or Uber app, you'll occasionally see an option outside of the Uber or Lyft options to take a cab. You'll literally see it there in the app, and it'll provide an opportunity for a cab to come and pick you up as part of that service. And again, that's very market localized. So it's kind of like I couldn't do that here in my city of St. Louis. So it just really depends on where you live at. So this is not completely new, but the fact that Uber might need to rely on it is a little hilarious. So Uber is reportedly having conversations with New York's taxi service in an effort to get more rideshare drivers on the road. Uber is experiencing a shortage of drivers and apparently looking to supplement that shortage. And again, no idea what kind of deal that would be given their Viator past. And Uber also declined to provide comments to Engadget reporting on this. Yeah, I find that to be... because there is a driver shortage, but also it's partly because people are doing other, like, it's a mix of things that people are not using Uber and Lyft as much right now because they don't want to necessarily be in those cars.
Yep.
And on top of that, it also means there's people that don't want to drive for Lyft and Uber as a result of the pandemic. So I don't know where they're going to get. I don't know where they're going to get the drivers from. Like, it's hilarious that they're trying to resort to this to get help from the taxi service, but I don't know if that actually fixes the problem, because I kind of would want to know what are the taxi driver numbers like right now.
Because additionally, like, taxi drivers, they're already, most taxi services already have a taxi app, and you can just summon a taxi cab. The problem being that when you call a taxi, they're like, I'll be there in an hour and a half. And, like, if you're calling a taxi, it's probably because you need to go to the airport and you need to be there soon.
Yeah.
But that aside, like, as somebody who could be the head of a taxi organization and be like, oh, wow, Lyft wants to talk to me about combining our forces or whatever, I'd be like, why would I do that? If anybody opens up the Uber app, I said Lyft, but if anybody opens up the Uber app and you can't get a ride, the next app they're going to open is probably mine. So... no, I don't want to pair with you.
Yeah,
because I don't get anything.
Yeah, what's the incentive? Yeah, absolutely right.
It's like, I'm next on the totem pole for options, or maybe, in reality, next on the totem pole is probably Lyft. If people are using Uber, then they'll go to Lyft, and then they'll download the taxi app and then open that. More realistically, but. Still, I would assume that, like, the taxi individual is aware that, like, where they sit on the pecking order or whatever, and it would behoove them to just be like, no, if you're not doing well here and your business dies, then, like, I'm one step closer to being back on top. So why would I help you?
Yeah.
But I don't know what condition they're in. So maybe they're in a little bit of need of a symbiotic relationship opportunity. But yeah.
Be very interesting to see how that goes. What is the last topic before Eternals?
We got Google Docs updates. Tech Republic actually reported on this story, as they had a very enthusiastic writer talking about it. And as I was taking the notes for it, I was also able to verify it because we write our notes in Google Docs. Google Docs now has added a neat insert tool to make using their docs much easier. Using the @ symbol, you can now easily add a host of insertable items without having to grab your mouse. For those who use Google Docs, you're very familiar. If you want to add a list of bullet points or a dotted list or check marks or meeting notes or file attachments, images, drawings, tables, charts, headings, dates, whatever, you gotta go up to like the insert button and find it in the list, and then you use your mouse and go and find it and click it. No more. You can just hit the @ symbol, type in what you need, and pop it in right where you put the @ symbol. It's like you want to put a drop-down list, boom, or not drop-down list, but check marks, bulleted list, bam, easy peasy. For those who spend a whole lot of time in Google Docs, this new tool makes those long writing sessions that much easier and that much more efficient.
Yes. There's also just being able to do a lot of things on the keyboard.
Yeah, the less you have to take your hands off the keyboard when you're doing a long writing session, the better. So like learning, especially if you're somebody who writes a lot and like you don't know hotkeys, like learn those hotkeys because those things are a lifesaver.
Just gotta get that speed, son.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that will bring us to our last topic. Just giving our impressions on Eternals, and. Yeah, do you want to go first, or?
Sure. I would wager that you probably have a more in-depth critique of it, given that it is your literal job. But yeah, I enjoyed the film. As I mentioned briefly at some point, I hate long films that have two rising actions because they make me hyper aware of how long the movie is, and then I either just want the movie to be over or I just straight up want to die in the movie theater because I can't tolerate being alive anymore. And fortunately, that's how I felt when watching Dune the second time. I was like, I fell asleep until the first climax, and then I was just like, oh my god, this movie's so long. My friends don't know that I've seen it already, and I just don't want to watch it anymore. But Eternals doesn't do that. They do a really good job of keeping a nice, consistent pace through the whole movie. Like, it doesn't feel like you've reached any, like, critical point where, oh man, like, the movie might be over and they might hit you with a part 2. It never feels like that. It feels like a full story, end to end. It just happens to be on the longer side, and you never perceive the passage of time while you're in the movie theater, which is exactly the way that I like it. Because, like, I can't stand knowing how long a movie is. It's like the major thing that stops me from watching film is the time investment. And like if you make me aware of how much time I'm spending watching a movie, I hate it and I just want to leave and I don't want to be there anymore. But the Eternals didn't do that for me. So yeah, great, good movie. That aside, they do a good job of establishing all the characters. They spend a good amount of time with everybody except for like two characters. Kind of spending some time with them, and like you get a decent understanding of like who they are and like what their temperament is about, and you know what their powers or skill set is. The whole time I was watching it, I'm like, why would a space deity create all these people who only have like a superpower and a half when you could have just all made them one person and probably done the same thing? And the answer is divide and conquer. They can't be everywhere at once, and it's like, okay, that makes sense. There was one other thought I had. Also, it gave me major Power Ranger vibes, where there's like scenes where they're like suiting up, and I'm like expecting them to to shout like it's morphin time. It's like Mastodon, Tyrannosaurus is like pterodactyl. I'm like, all this needs is like a rockin' 80s guitar, or I guess 90s guitar, like intro while they're like putting their suits on, like something. Exactly. But overall, I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was fun. It had a good balance of like comedy and action and seriousness and some other and other stuff. And the host of the personalities of the Eternals is varied enough that they're not all like monolithic kind of characters, and they do a good job of diversifying the cast in both a personality wise and an individual wise.
Yeah, that's generally where I sit at. I need to go back and look at a few key Marvel movies, but I think I'm comfortable saying it's the most beautiful one I've seen, just from what Chloe Zhao shot. Like there might be some more memorable moments or scenes for sure, but just like as far as like the look of things or how like certain landscapes and things were shot. When you think about Salma Hayek's character or Ajak, her house out there in the farm. Any shots of Babylon that weren't really like on the CGI, but just more of like the landscape of Babylon, or in the ending, which I don't really want to get into for folks that haven't seen it. It's just the scale of that, because there's like a volcano involved, and you're kind of like, oh, okay, a volcano and there's ash and stuff like. But when it really continues to expand out, you see how big this event is happening, like what's really taking place in it. I'm like, wow, that's great.
Yeah, I I was similar. I'm like, oh, okay, like this is. I'm like, oh, this is bad. Okay, that was basically my response. You did remind me of something else. One thing that I also noticed and appreciated was it's a very not America-centric movie. That like most of it's like, oh, yo, this is when we were in this place at this time, and it's not the U.S. And oh wow, this is when we were in this place at this time, and it's not the U.S. Oh man, we got to go over here to retrieve this person, and it's not the U.S. And like I really appreciated just like the presence of like, thank God that this movie acknowledges that like not every story needs to be told in New York.
It's like New York is not the nexus of every event. That might be where a lot of superheroes reside at, but that does not need to be the nexus of every event. Exactly. And heck, why set every... Okay. And even that's a choice. You don't have to set every... Yeah, that's a longer conversation. Yeah, so I thought it was very beautiful. So here's where I feel on the ensemble. I feel like everyone has really solid moments. And it kind of runs into... Oh, go ahead.
Almost everybody.
But it kind of gets into this Rogue One problem. Because I really love Rogue One. I think Rogue One is a fantastic movie. And there's some really standout characters. And I think if you think about the totality of moments together, works really well. But for people that really want super strong character-driven narratives, this doesn't quite give them that. Like, it is a holistic... This is the experience of a group of people... And here's where they're going to plug in and out of that to get you to a point A to point B. So that is very clear. But if you really like a particular character and you want to know more about them, this just isn't the film for you. Yeah. And it's someone could argue like, well, they could have done a better job. I was like, I think this is what they wanted to go for, and I don't think it's necessarily about a better or worse thing. It's like this is what the story they want to tell.
This is the objective. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, when you're telling a story about the Eternals as the collective, not like one particular Eternal, like you have like a cast of like 8 characters that need to be introduced, differentiated, and at least lightly developed enough for you to believe like, okay, cool, this is an independent character, like, and they have their thing. I see it, I understand it, and like I can make some general assumptions about maybe like some ideas that they might have or where they might side on this particular issue, and like that's it. And I'm like, you're dealing, and like they're not doing like, oh, here's phase 4, 5, 6 where all the Eternals come together by the end of it, and then they fight, blah 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 or whatever. Like it's like we did with the Avengers, where like you get to meet everybody and develop the character. It's not that. Yeah. Like it's like the Avengers are already assembled. We're on the team, and we've been a team for thousands of years. Planeteers go. Like that's the story. That was the other reference I had in my head. Was like I expected them to like gather and be like Earth, Fire, Wind, Water, Heart.
I mean, it kind of. So to the Power Ranger feel, though, I think those opening scenes, flashbacks where they're fighting, lend credence to that because of the way they handle each other. Mm-hmm. Like where I think Gilgamesh helps Athena get off the ground, or it's like even the way that they like take hits or stuff is choreographed in a way that's like it looked like a Power Ranger taking a hit, not necessarily in a bad way, but just more in a okay, Goldar, you hit me, but I'm going to you slugger, I'm gonna
you're like waiting for the for like Rita Repulsa to like show up and then like make the enemy into a giant, and I'm like, oh no. It's like like at some point I was like,
yeah, kind of happens.
Yeah, I was basically waiting for. There was like some point where I can't remember exactly where they were fighting, but I'm like, this is the functional equivalent of monsters attacking the quarry, but like 6,000 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. The ancient Power Rangers, the ones that came with Zordon before he had to recruit the new. Yeah. Yeah, the biggest thing that I think doesn't work for me are the flashbacks. I almost would have. And what I mean by that is, a lot of the flashbacks serve to wrap up something that happened in the previous scene, as opposed to really setting us up for the next one. So, like between Icarus and Cersei, we're getting learn more of their backstory because they just now have seen each other after it's been so many years, and it chooses a flashback at that moment. But the problem is, they're immediately going into another part where we're going to meet another Eternal, and I almost wonder if you could have tied those scenes together in a way that teases that next Eternal that you're getting ready to meet. So I feel like there's some kind of emotional swell that kind of gets lost when the flashbacks aren't synced up in that way. It's a little thing, but I feel like that's the one spot to me where they kind of lose me a little bit. The present day stuff I think is really solid. And unfortunately, there's one that I cannot talk about. We'll probably save it for tomorrow and do like a spoiler chat. But there's one that, unfortunately, with the trailers, I'm like, that really would have been great. But I already knew
I never
something was
saw
off. Yes. And it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. But yeah, so I don't think it's the greatest Marvel movie ever made.
Nah.
I just don't. I do think, like, if people say this doesn't resonate with them as much, I'm like, yeah, it is. It's kind of asking you to, like, if you talk about nuances between characters, it's asking you to pick up on that very quickly, and things that get revealed. I think if I go back and rewatch this, I'd be like, well, dadgummit, it was right there. But it was between how the characters interacted with each other. It wasn't necessarily they said this thing, and you had to pick up the thing that they said. It's more of like well, did you see how this person interacted with this person? And did you see how they've bristled against each other and what that would probably look like over thousands of years? And also, you need to put on this thing in your head for a bit of like, what does it feel like to be someone that lives that long? A la like a Wonder Woman kind of situation, like you see her struggle with in the movies of being as old as she is and losing people on a regular basis, not being able to hold, relationships in that way. The movie is asking you to do that. It's like, think about what it would be like to be eternal.
Yeah, for me, like I feel like I was able to go into the movie theater and already empathize with that because like that's like a hypothetical that like I've talked about and expounded upon, and I already know what my answer would be. If somebody's like, "Oh man, would you want to live forever?" and I'm like, "Absolutely not." Like I would prefer that like. At some point I cease existing and don't have a conscious mind because existing consciously forever sounds super boring. It's like at some point you're going to do everything that you could possibly do and there's going to be nothing left to do. So, when I going into this, I was already like, okay, cool. Like I've already thought about some of these problems of like, I've been alive for 7,000 years. What do I do now?
Do it all again.
I mean, if you're not an Eternal and you're a human, then like likely you'll just start forgetting stuff that you've done before, and also forgetting people and all sorts of other stuff. So like it would be like you didn't live forever, because you would just for your brain's not made for infinite storage. So I mean, like I barely can remember. Yeah, but I can barely remember like what what's it called? Yeah, where my sentence was going.
Yeah. So yeah, the score it's getting though is just it's amazing to me. So I want to watch it again. I just can't comprehend that score. It's like, and I'm not trying to belittle Marvel movies. I know my feelings on them has changed. I'm not as into them as I was before, but like I just can't. I have not been able to handle where that score is at compared to other Marvel movies. And I can keep harping on Thor in the Dark World, but I just, I'm flabbergasted, quite honestly. So yeah, those are my impressions. Me and Tom will break it down a little bit more. We'll get into spoilers because there's
Excuse me.
If you stayed for everyone probably knew about the Harry Styles one, which I won't tell you who he is in case you hadn't seen that, but just he's in there. Man, I was freaking out at the end credits one. I was like, I know that voice. I know who that is. And that's all I'm gonna say. So
I was lost at that one. I was like, I gotta look this up.
Right.
I have guesses, but I don't know. I also we'll talk after the show.
I'll tell you after the show.
Yeah. But what's going down on Nerd Union this week?
What's going down on Nerd Union? Hold on. Tomorrow's Commander Ship Show at 8 p.m. Central, hosted by myself and Major Tom. So there's a lot of news coming out from the set of Black Panther, some good, some not so good. We'll talk about that. There's a lot of rumors coming out about the new Spider-Man trailer, whether it's actually going to confirm the Spider multiverse thing happening. In my personal opinion, I think they should just keep it secret. Don't tell anybody. Just hold that close to the chest. But you never know. We'll see. And yes, me and Tom will be giving our breakdown of Eternals, and we're going to talk the spoilers. So today we kept it spoiler free. We will dive into those spoilers. Me and Steve will talk after this though, to talk about that end credits thing, because he's got to know. But I was freaking out. I knew it. I was like, this. Some of the names are getting thrown out. Okay, I'll shut up because I'll end up saying it.
Yep.
Yeah, and we just we'll talk more movie news, and also the feud between The Rock and Vin Diesel might get worked out.
Oh yeah, I saw that too.
We'll see. We'll talk about what that means. There's actually a really big financial incentive for Fast and the Furious to get The Rock back in their graces because, long story short, he boosts the franchise by upwards of $300 to $400 million when he joined the franchise. Like, that's indisputable.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. So it might be family is the reason they want to bring it back together. But I think it's finances. Money. That was better. Money. Yeah, that was better. So we'll be talking about that all tomorrow night. Let's see.
Also, this week we got the Rundown hosted with Taryn Bell. It's the weekly recap of all the nerd topics that don't fit on our shows throughout the week, and it gets you ready for the whole weekend.
Yep. Coming up on Thursday, the Quorum meets from 7 to 9 p.m. Central. We're still going through Cowboy Bebop, and we've got additional episodes on that. And then that's for the animated version of Cowboy Bebop. We will eventually be covering the live-action one. It is close. We are like 11. Yeah, it comes on 19th. We're 11 days away, so it is coming up super soon, super close. And also Thursday night, Red Shirt Rejects will be back with Kyle and Trevor. We just did all of the Star Trek films, just went through, reviewed them all, and this is our recap. So we're going to talk about, we did a list, all of us did a list and ranked our Star Trek films where we thought they listed, where we had them at. we did our rewatch, so now we're going to see if our list stays the same. We're going to adjust the debate and see if our list stays the change, along with some additional Star Trek updates that have come out throughout the last couple of weeks. And we'll get you prepared for Star Trek Discovery, because Star Trek Discovery comes out this month. It's also very soon.
Hey, nice. I missed didn't stick the landing. And a special thanks to our Patreon supporters. We appreciate your monthly contributions because they help us run these dank shows and our upcoming video series. Want to give a shout out to Doug Schumann and Shelby Johnson. And this week's throwback game. Last week I mentioned a game that I could only kind of remember the name of, but I looked it up. It's Jet Li Rise to Honor. It's a PlayStation 2 game. It is a twin stick fighting game, which I don't see a whole lot of, but it's extra cool. Basically, it features just Jet Li fighting a whole bunch of people. It's actually really hard, or at least it was hard for me when I was, however old I was, and probably not that good at video games. So I'm curious to see how I would fare with it now, and figure out the game and all that stuff. But it was a fun hand-to-hand combat fighting game where you go through a bunch of different areas, and it has some interesting, very fluid movement mechanics and transitions between enemies, and a not very well explained combo system or very well explained anything, which was part of the charm. How about for you, Kenny?
So last week I was talking about John Wick Hex. And that got me thinking, with the Metal Gear news that happened today, made me think about a Metal Gear game on the PSP, Metal Gear Acid. So I was trying to remember, was John Wick, was that the first time I kind of had this strategy tactical shooter that I played? And no, technically it'd be, there's been other ones before that, but Metal Gear Acid is the one that makes you think of a high profile. And really what the problem was, on the old PSP, you didn't have two thumbsticks. You only had one thumbstick. Whoever made that decision, don't know why. They didn't just go ahead and include two. But you only had the D-pad and the thumbstick, so they had to kind of get creative on how to move around in those spaces. And the fix there for Metal Gear was you basically run into this RPG situation every time you come into encounters and different things like that. So it was originally on the PSP, but you can get it on the PlayStation Store, or if you have the there's ways to play it. There's ways to play it that are not on the PlayStation Store. So, you can bust out your old PS Vita.
Hit up the GameStop used game section. You probably find it.
Oh man! But thank you all for joining us tonight. Nice cup of tea. It's good to see you back on here. Love having you and Taryn, our wonderful researcher and host of the Rundown on here every night. And we've had a lot more folks on Mondays and Tuesdays, so thank you all for joining us, folks that have been here. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and we will see you next week on our next episode of State of the Nerd Union. We'll see you all.
Peace.
I just waved, and